The morning we left for the lake house, my husband kissed me on the cheek and told me this trip was going to be good for us. I believed him. I always believed him. I had packed the night before sunscreen, the good wine, the homemade lemon bars my sister-in-law had specifically requested, and I was ready by 6 in the morning while the rest of them were still sleeping. That was the thing about me. I was always ready, always prepared, always the one who made sure everyone else had what they needed before I thought about myself. His name is Daniel. We had been married for 9 years. His sister is Renata, 3 years younger than him, sharp-tongued and beautiful in the way that makes people forgive her for things they never would forgive anyone else. His brother is Cole, the youngest, the one everyone called the fun one, who laughed too loud at his own jokes and never once offered to help with dishes. And then there was Cole's girlfriend, Priya, who had been around for only 8 months but had somehow already established herself as the authority on every topic, from wine pairings to whether or not I was too sensitive. My name is Claire. I am 38 years old. I am a graphic designer who works from home, which apparently means, in the language of my husband's family, that I am always available to run errands, take notes, coordinate logistics, and hold my tongue. The lake house belonged to Daniel's parents, who had retired to Florida 2 years ago and handed the keys to Daniel as the oldest. We went every summer. Every summer, I cooked most of the meals. Every summer, I made sure the grocery list was complete, the beds were made, the kayaks were inflated, and the schedule was loosely organized enough that nobody would fight about who wanted to do what and when. Every summer, I told myself it was fine. It was family. This was what you did. This summer was supposed to be different because Daniel had promised me, specifically promised me, that we would take one morning, just one, to drive to the little town 20 minutes away and have breakfast at the bakery I had been reading about for 2 years, a place called Halcyon. They made croissants from scratch. They had a courtyard with string lights and lavender growing along the fence. I had shown Daniel the photos at least a dozen times. He always said, "Yeah, that looks great. We'll go." We never went. We arrived at the lake house on a Friday evening. By 9 o'clock that night, they were already talking about Saturday's itinerary. Paddleboarding, then the farmer's market, then lunch at the marina, then maybe a hike if there was time. I said, carefully, that I had been hoping we could do breakfast at Halcyon first, before the paddleboarding. It was only 20 minutes away. We could be there and back by 9. Renata looked at me the way she always looked at me when I suggested anything. A slow blink, a slight tilt of the head, like I was a child who had wandered into the wrong conversation. "The farmer's market closes at noon," she said. "If we detour for breakfast, we'll miss half of it. We could do the market another day," I said. "There's a Sunday market, too. Sunday, we're doing the boat." "I know," I just thought. Claire. That was Priya, not even my actual family, and she used my name like a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence that meant, "Stop talking. We've had this plan for weeks. Can we just stick to it?" Daniel said nothing. He was looking at his phone. He laughed at something on his screen, and the conversation moved on without me. I ate my wine and told myself it was fine. I would find another time. Saturday morning came and went exactly as planned. The paddleboarding took twice as long as expected because Cole kept falling off and thought it was hilarious, and then the farmer's market ran over, and by the time we got back to the lake house for lunch, I was sunburned and quiet and trying very hard not to feel what I was feeling. Sunday, there was the boat. Monday, there was a day trip to the state park. Halcyon never came up again. On Tuesday morning, I woke up early, before everyone else, and I drove myself there alone. I am not sure what I expected. Maybe I expected it to be good enough to settle something inside me. What I did not expect was that it would feel like relief. I sat in the courtyard with a coffee and a croissant, and the lavender was exactly as it looked in the photos, and the light was the kind of soft morning light that doesn't ask anything of you, and for 45 minutes I was quietly myself. I took a picture and sent it to Daniel with the caption, "Finally made it. It's perfect," he replied 40 minutes later with a thumbs up emoji. I sat with that for a moment. 9 years. A thumbs up. I drove back to the lake house, and when I walked through the door, Renata was standing at the kitchen counter with her arms crossed. Cole and Priya were on the back porch. Daniel was packing the cooler. "Where were you?" Renata said. I went to that bakery. Halcyon. I mentioned it. We've been waiting for you. She said it flat. Factual. Like I had committed something. Waiting for what? Nobody said anything about plans this morning. We're going to the waterfall trail. Cole found it last night. We wanted to leave by 9. It was 8:57. I didn't know, I said. I'm back now. I can be ready in 5 minutes. She looked at Cole. He shrugged. Priya was examining her nails. It's fine, Daniel said. Let's just go. The trail was difficult. Not impossible, but difficult, steep in stretches, rocky, and I had worn the wrong shoes because nobody had told me we were hiking until 3 minutes before we left. I slipped once on a wet rock and Daniel grabbed my arm but said nothing, just kept moving. Renata and Priya were ahead, their pace steady and fast. Cole kept stopping to take videos. Nobody stopped for me. At one point, I paused at a lookout point because the view was genuinely extraordinary, and I wanted 30 seconds to actually look at it, to be somewhere beautiful, and notice that I was there. I heard Daniel say something to Cole. I didn't catch all of it. I caught enough. She always does this, he said. I know, Cole said. She slows everything down. I stood at the edge of that lookout, and I watched them walk away from me, and I made a decision that I did not fully understand yet, but that felt like the most solid thing I had felt in years. I turned around and walked back to the trailhead alone. When I got to the car, I sat in the passenger seat and waited. They came back an hour later, and Daniel's face when he saw me was not worried. It was irritated. You just left? You said I slow everything down. There was a silence. Renata got in the back seat. Priya got in after her. Cole stood by the trunk, suddenly very interested in tying his shoes. I didn't mean it like that, Daniel said. How did you mean it? He didn't answer. He started the car. We drove back to the lake house without speaking. That night, I sat outside by the water after everyone had gone to bed, and I let myself think clearly for the first time in a very long time, not about what had happened on the trail, about the pattern, the decade of small moments that looked like nothing individually but, stacked together, formed something that had a shape, the shape of a woman who had made herself smaller and smaller until she fit into a space that everyone else had decided was the right size for her. I thought about Halcyon. I thought about that courtyard and that light, and the 45 minutes I had sat there feeling like myself. I thought, what if I stayed? Not at the lake house. I did not want to stay at the lake house, but in the area, in the town. What if I didn't go back? It was a ridiculous thought. I had a life. I had a home 2 states away. I had a marriage, technically. I had a career that I carried in a laptop bag. But I also had, I was realizing, very little that actually required me to be in any particular place. I went to bed and did not sleep much. In the morning, I drove back to Halcyon. This time I talked to the owner. Her name was Judith. She was in her mid-50s with paint-stained hands and reading glasses pushed up on her head, and the kind of directness that some people find rude and I found deeply comforting. She had opened the bakery 6 years ago after leaving a corporate job in Chicago, and she was looking, she mentioned without much ceremony, for someone to help her with the branding. Her website was embarrassing, she said. Her Instagram looked like it was run by a golden retriever. I told her I was a graphic designer. She said, "Are you any good?" I told her I was excellent. She said, "Coffee's on me. Show me your portfolio." I stayed at Halcyon until noon. Then I drove back to the lake house, packed my bag, and told Daniel I wasn't going home with them. He stared at me. "What are you talking about? I'm going to stay for a while. I found some work here. Freelance. I need a change of scenery. Claire, we have to be back by Thursday. I have the Henderson meeting. I know. You should go. You're being dramatic." "Maybe." I zipped my bag. "But I'm staying." Renata appeared in the doorway. She took in the scene with that particular expression she wore when she felt she was witnessing something that confirmed a long-held theory. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Daniel said. "Fine," I said. She looked between us and then quietly left. I heard her telling Cole something in a low voice in the hallway. I did not try to hear what it was. Daniel stood in the middle of the room for another few minutes, waiting for me to change my mind. When I didn't, he left. Not dramatically. He just picked up his bag and walked out. Cole knocked on the doorframe on his way past and gave me a look that might have been apologetic but was too brief to be sure. Priya didn't say anything. I heard the car pull out of the driveway. I sat down on the edge of the bed and waited to feel something devastating. What I felt instead was a strange, wide quiet, like the first breath after a very long time of holding it. The lake house was mine until Sunday. Daniel had not thought to formally revoke my access, and the keys were in my hand. I spent the rest of that day swimming by myself and eating whatever I wanted for dinner and watching a movie I had been meaning to watch for 2 years that Daniel always said was too long. The next morning, I met Judith at Halcyon at 7. She showed me every piece of existing branding, which was exactly as bad as she had advertised. The logo looked like clip art. The menu design was inconsistent. The website was functional in the way that a 10-year-old car is functional. It moved, but it inspired no confidence. I spent that first week doing the work I do best, which is seeing what something is and figuring out how to show the world what it could be. Judith gave me the corner table by the lavender and brought me coffee and left me alone, which turned out to be exactly what I needed from another person right then. Just proximity, without pressure. Just someone nearby who didn't want anything from me except the work. I found a short-term rental a few blocks from the bakery, a one-bedroom above a bookstore, with a window that looked out onto a maple tree. It was less than half what my share of the mortgage cost, and it was entirely mine. Daniel called every day for the first week. The calls were short and followed a pattern. He asked, when I was coming home, I said I didn't know. He told me I was being unreasonable. I said I needed time. By the second week, he was calling every other day. By the third week, every few days. His sister called once. She said, I don't know what you think you're proving. I told her I wasn't trying to prove anything. She said, then come home. I said, I'm not ready. She said, Daniel is unhappy. I said, I know. I'm sorry about that. She hung up. Cole texted me once. Hey, for what it's worth, I shouldn't have said that. On the trail. I'm sorry. I thanked him. I meant it. Priya did not contact me. I had not expected her to. The work with Judith was going well. I redesigned the logo clean, warm, the H in Halcyon becoming the handle of a coffee cup in a way that was simple enough to work at any size. I rebuilt the website from scratch. I developed a full brand guide and a content strategy for the social media. By the end of the second week, we had taken new photos of the pastry case, the courtyard, the croissants stacked in the early light, and posted 3 of them. Each one did better than the last. At the end of the third week, a woman I did not know stopped me in the bakery and said, Did you do the new branding? I saw it online and I drove here specifically because of it. It looked so beautiful. I stood there for a moment, holding my coffee cup. Yes, I said. I did. She told me she ran a small inn about 40 minutes away and handed me her card. The referrals started slow and then not slow. There was something about being in a small town where every business knew every other business once Judith told people who had done her rebranding. The conversations found me. A wine shop, a pottery studio, a woman who made artisan candles and sold them online and couldn't figure out why her sales had plateaued. I looked at her branding and understood immediately. Everything was beautiful, but nothing was coherent. Nothing was telling a story. Telling stories, it turned out, was something I was very good at. I had been doing it for other people for years without ever applying it to myself. 2 months after the trip, Daniel came to see me. He drove up on a Saturday morning without telling me he was coming, which I discovered later was Renata's suggestion. She thought the element of surprise would make me more likely to cave. I was at Halcyon when he walked through the door. He looked the same, a little tired, maybe. He looked at the corner table, at my laptop and my sketchbook, and my second coffee of the morning. And I saw something move across his face that I could not quite name. He sat down across from me. You actually stayed? He said. I actually stayed. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I've missed you. I've missed you too, I said. And I had. Not the version of our life together that had made me feel invisible, but the version of Daniel that I had married. The one who showed up sometimes in moments when he wasn't performing for his siblings. The one who could be genuinely kind and genuinely funny and genuinely present. I had missed that person. I wasn't sure he had missed me the same way, because missing someone and missing what they did for you are 2 different things, and I was still figuring out which one applied here. I want to fix this, he said. I know. Do you want to fix it? I looked at him for a long time. I want us to fix the right things, I said. Not just go back. He nodded. He asked if he could come back the next weekend. I said yes. He came back. He came back the weekend after that. We started, slowly and carefully, having the conversations we had been not having for years. They were uncomfortable in the way that necessary things often are. Some of them went badly. One of them went so badly that I drove to Judith's house at 9 at night and sat on her porch and cried while she made tea and said very little, which was exactly right. Some conversations went better than I expected. Daniel told me that what he had said on the trail, "She slows everything down," had been playing in his head since the moment he said it. He said he didn't mean it the way it sounded, but also wasn't sure, if he was honest, that the way it sounded was entirely wrong. He said that somewhere along the way he had started seeing our life as a logistics problem and me as one of the variables, and that when he said it out loud it sounded monstrous, and it was, and he was ashamed of it. I told him it was going to take me a while to trust that he meant that. He said okay. Renata and I had one conversation, in November, at a family dinner at their parents' house. She found me in the kitchen where I was washing dishes, a habit that is apparently written into my cells, and she leaned against the counter and said, not unkindly, "You changed." "Yes," I said. "It's strange. For you, maybe?" She was quiet for a moment. "Is it good? Whatever you've been doing up there?" I thought about the maple tree outside my window, the courtyard at Halcyon, the inn owner's card in my wallet, and the 3 new clients I had taken on, and the morning I had woken up and realized I was not dreading the day. "Yes," I said. "It's really good." She nodded. She picked up a dish towel and started drying. We didn't say anything else, and it was not comfortable exactly, but it was honest, and I decided I could work with honest. The candle maker doubled her online sales in 3 months. She sent me a bottle of champagne with a note that said, "I didn't know what my brand was trying to say. Now it does." I put the note on my wall. The inn reached out about a full rebrand. That project alone was more money than I had made in any single quarter working the way I had worked before. I stayed in the apartment above the bookstore through the winter. I watched the maple tree go bare, and then get covered in snow, and then, in March, start the whole tentative process of coming back. There was something about watching that tree that felt important to me in a way I could not entirely articulate, except to say that things that look finished often aren't, and the thing that looks like an ending is sometimes just a very cold month before something new starts. Daniel and I are in counseling. I don't know how that ends. I know that I am not willing to go back to the version of our life where I made myself invisible to keep the peace. And I know that he says he doesn't want that either. And I know that saying a thing and meaning it are both necessary and not the same. We are figuring that out. It is slow. It is real. I still have the apartment. I am not ready to give it up. Judith calls it my home base, which is not technically wrong. What I know now is this. I spent years believing that being good at taking care of other people meant I was good at being in relationships. I was good at being useful. That is not the same thing. Being useful is a skill. Being loved, being actually seen is something different, and you cannot earn it by being useful enough or quiet enough or small enough, and no one will tell you that because most people don't know it either. I know it now. I learned it in a courtyard with lavender growing along the fence, at a table no one saved for me, with a coffee I ordered myself, in a town I found by accident because the people who were supposed to be my family drove away and, for once, I didn't chase the car. I threw out the lemon bars. I had made them for people who did not deserve them. Next time I make them, I'll make them for myself.